Hey guys, I am in the classroom all by myself. It's so weird that you're not here. I wanted to keep reading The Thief Lord to you because I know some of you are really enjoying it. So I'm going to try to post one chapter at a time. Don't worry if you don't have a book, you can still just listen or you can even find it on YouTube, but I thought maybe it'd be fun if we read it together. So this is chapter 14. Darn it, Bo, can't you just do as you're told for once? Scipio scolded Bo as Prosper returned with him. You were gone for ages, Bo grumbled, and I was bored. He looked around, but Victor and Pigeon Man were nowhere to be seen. I had him right in sight all the time, Hornet said, so calm down. What's in the basket? Bo poked his fingers under the lid, but Prosper pulled back his arm. It's a carrier pigeon, so keep your hand away from it, okay? Come on, let's go back to the Star Palace. Scipio turned away from the big square and impatiently waved to the others to follow him. I haven't got much time today. What about the job? Bo called out, hopping excitedly after him. What do we have to steal? Calm down, Bo. Mosca put his hand over the boy's mouth. We don't know yet, okay? The Conti gave us an envelope, Prosper explained quietly to Bo, but Scipio wants us to open it only when we've reached the hideout. And Scipio is the boss, Ricio grumbled. His face was all gloomy, and his hands dug deep into his pockets as he walked alongside the others, appearing far more interested in the pavement than his business with the Conti. And who was the Conti? Hornet pulled Scipio's ponytail. She knew how much she hated that. Tell us about it, since we weren't allowed to come with you. What did he look like? Was he spooky? Mosca laughed. Spooky? No idea. We never actually saw him. Or did you see his face, Thief Lord? Scipio shook his head. Prosper was walking right behind him, Bo's hand firmly in his, but he kept looking over his shoulder. Thief Lord? Prosper's voice choked with nervousness. You'll probably think I'm crazy, but he looked around once more. The man on the square, the one who talked to Bo. Yes? Scipio turned around. What about him? He looked like a tourist to me. I know, but on the way to the Basilica, perhaps Hornet told you about the detective who followed Ricio and me? Scipio frowned. Yes? The man, just there. Prosper desperately searched for the words while Scipio just stared at him. I think it was him. He really did look like a tourist. But when he walked away, Bo interrupted his brother. What detective? Prosper gave him a wretched look. They came to a bridge and Scipio coolly scrutinized the people, pushing up the stairs behind him. You don't need to look as if it is the most stupid thing you've ever heard, Ricio said. Victor, the snoop, likes to dress up. Perhaps it really was him. And the pigeon man was called Victor. Bo interrupted him. He leaned over the balustrade. What? Prosper swung Bo towards him. What did you say, Bo? A few gondolas swayed in the water. The gondoliers waited for customers at the foot of the bridge. Bo watched with fascination as they tried to entice the passerbys. I said the pigeon man's name was Victor, Bo repeated without taking his eyes off the gondolier. And then he tore away from Prosper and jumped up and down the steps to watch the gondolier push his boat off of its mooring. Prosper stayed right on the bridge. He stood there as if rooted in one spot. Victor the Snoop? Ricio breathed. He stood on his tiptoes and peered into the crowds moving towards the bridge. Prosper, meanwhile, turned around and ran after Bo. He pulled him away from the gondolas so violently that Bo nearly fell, and then he vanished with him into the next alley. Hey, Prosper, wait! Scipio called out before chasing after them. He caught up with him after a few yards. What are you doing, running off like that? Scipio scolded him, holding on to his arm. Bo freed himself from Prosper's grip and stood next to Scipio. Come with me, Scipio said, and without another word he pushed the two of them into the nearest souvenir shop. Ricio, Mosca, and Hornet squeezed in after him. Act as if you're looking at something, Scipio whispered. The shop assistant looked at them suspiciously. If that guy in St. Mark's Square really was that detective, then it won't do any good to just run away, he said to Prosper under his breath. With all those people around you, you'll never notice him following you. He crouched in front of Bo and put his hands on his shoulders. That Victor, did he ask you any questions? He said, when you were feeding the pigeons back in the square? Bo crossed his arms behind his back. Well, he asked me my name. Did you tell him? Hesitantly, Bo nodded. What else did you tell him, Bo? Hornet whispered. The shop assistant looked toward them more frequently now, but luckily, a party of tourists came in and kept her busy for the time being. I don't remember, Bo mumbled and looked at Prosper. Did Esther send the detective? His lips began to tremble. Scipio sighed and got up again. He looked at Prosper. What does this detective look like? But that's just it. The tourist turned around and Prosper immediately lowered his voice. This time he looked completely different. He had no beard and he wore glasses, and I could hardly see his eyes because he wore a cap, and I only recognized him because, well, he ran away. He moves his shoulders in a strange way when he walks, kind of like a bulldog. Scipio felt for the Conti's envelope. It was still tucked unopened inside his jacket. Then he looked thoughtfully through the shop window. If that really was the detective, he muttered, and if he really is following us, then we're leading him straight to the hideout, unless we can get rid of him first. The others looked at one another uneasily. Mosca lifted the Conti's basket and peered through the lid. The pigeon was growing restless in its prison. It's about time that we let it out of there, Mosca whispered. It's probably hungry. Does anybody know what pigeons eat? Ask Bo. He just fed a dozen of the creatures. Again, Scipio felt for the envelope in his pocket, and for a moment Prosper thought he was going to open it, but to his surprise, Scipio suddenly slipped it out of his jacket, pulled the ribbon off his hair, and took the cap off of Mosca's head. Two can play that game, he said, and pulled the cap down over his own head. It's not that hard to change the way you look. He threw his jacket at Prosper. You stay here, Bo. If the Snoop really is after you, then he's probably right outside waiting for you to come out. You just stand by the window so that he can see you through the glass. Mosca, you take the pigeon and the envelope and go back home. Mosca nodded, and with great care placed the Conti's envelope into his pants pocket. Riccio, Hornet. Scipio waved at the two of them at the door. We'll take a look outside. Maybe we'll find him. What was he wearing? Prosper thought about it. A red jacket, light pants, and a weird checkered sweater. He had a camera around his neck, and he had glasses and a baseball cap with something written on it. I love Venice, or something like that. And his watch. Bo was nibbling his thumbnail, and it had a moon on it. Scipio frowned. Fine, got all that? Hornet, Riccio, and Mosca added. Or nodded. Then, let's go. One by one, they slipped outside. Prosper and Bo watched them through the window, but he was nice. Bo mumbled. You never know right away whether someone is really nice, Prosper replied, and you can't tell from the way someone looks. How often do I have to tell you that?